Today I'm discussing what no one talks about, how small the capacitors are in a grid tie inverter. Now in a typical grid tie inverter you have a capacitor at the input which provides support for the inverter. You're running at 60 Hertz, and so there'll be peak currents and there'll be minimal currents, and this is supposed to smooth them out. Now that capacitor is only rated about 1 1/4 amps. And look how small it is. This is much larger. This is only rated about 3.6 amps, and the capacitance of this is 5 times greater than what this capacitor is. So you can see that it takes a lot of physical size to handle current. And you know, current, if you're looking at one of these grid tie inverters, even a 300 watt will easily do, you know, 10, 15, 20 amps. Now right now we're running this grid tie inverter off this power supply. But what we've done is we've added this resistor in series. And this sort of simulates a solar panel and allows us to make some current measurements. So here's what we've done. Here's the power supply. The 1 ohm resistor is in the negative lead. Now with 1 ohm, 1 volt is equal to 1 amp. And we also have the other scope trace which measures the input voltage. Now right now, this is a 300 watt inverter. We're only running at about 80 watts. So that's a very light load. And look what we're getting. This top one is the voltage and the bottom is the current. To show you better, the peak is 17.8 volts and the minimal voltage is 13 volts. That's a 4.8 volt voltage swing. So your peaks happen at the lowest current, and at the highest current you got your major drop. So what you're doing is you're losing power. The capacitor should be storing energy at these voltage peaks when there's very little current drawn and saving that for later. This line should be almost straight going across. And if we look at current, this is the voltage across the resistor. There's 8.6 amps difference between the peak current and the minimal current. This is a high ripple current. Not only is it going to destroy your capacitor over time, but it wastes power. So again, what you really need is a capacitor bank going into these grid tie inverters to simulate what you would get from a direct connect to a power supply or battery. Everyone else tests these with a power supply and they get an efficiency and it looks good. But if you have a solar panel connected to them, you're losing a lot of power at those peak times, and you're not saving that power at the minimal currents to be used later, so your real efficiency has dropped a lot. Thanks for listening.